Hello everyone and welcome to the 70th IEP Live Learn Lunch. We're really excited today to be joined by David Imber from the Good Employability Company, and he's going to be talking to us about garbage in and garbage out. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass you over to David.
Hello everyone, and hello to some friends from a long time ago as well as new friends. Great to see you all. I'm truly flattered that you think it's worth giving up your lunchtime to listen to me waffling on, and so I thought that for this session I would let my hair down a little and be a bit indiscreet and invite your challenges and your disgust and your pleasure and your amusement by looking at some things which I've met over the years. Just a few examples of the rather odd things that go on in employability practice. So, and I just want to say there really are just a few examples. When you start looking, there are dozens of these snake oil charms out there, and they're just waiting for us to pick them up and use them, I think. Garbage in, garbage out was a phrase invented by the techies, the computer buffs, back in the distant past, the 80s or something, to describe what you get out of a computer if what you put in isn't very good. And it seemed a useful idea, a useful title for us. So for those of you who are, compared to me, really terribly young, remember that a lot of what I say has got a long history to it. Anyway, next slide, please, Helen. Oh, that's me. Hello. Look at me staring out of the screen with a different haircut. Move on. Here we go. Now, in our work, there is every reason that we should be looking for things which help us work more consistently, more efficiently, make our services more accessible and accurate. And why wouldn't we, honestly, why wouldn't we use every help we can possibly find? There's a lot of it out there, and on your screen you can see one of the medical devices that perhaps has sunk into oblivion, and not only because of the look on the face of the nurse, I think. Next slide. Here are some of the things perhaps we do well not to use quite so much. And as I said, just a very brief selection. Eye movement desensitization reprocessing became terribly fashionable and has made an awful lot of money in its time. And somebody famously said about it, what's new about it doesn't work, and what works about it isn't new. That was shortly after it came out. Then there's left brain, right brain. That's really popular when you're trying to get people to imagine their future. And you hear people saying, oh, he's a right brain thinker. It actually means absolutely nothing at all, but it sounds persuasive. It's all over the internet. Neuro-linguistic programming came out about 30 or 40 years ago, and occasionally you still meet it. But well, there's a quote there, and it's not mine, but it's actually pseudoscience. It isn't really possible to reprogram someone's mind with a few carefully chosen words. I had a girlfriend once who went in for hair analysis, and I think they took quite a lot of money from her and persuaded her she was allergic to all sorts of things. So I'll invite you to look that one up for yourselves, as you can Feng-shui, the noble art of rearranging your furniture to extract money out of your client. Look it up for yourself. I'm not a fan. I tend to keep my furniture pretty much where I like it. Next slide, let's have a look. Oh, yes. How often do you find people deciding that it'd be nice to find out their favorite kind of animal? Well, I did this one a few days ago, and it told me I'm a barn owl. And gosh, isn't that good? Because I'm a symbol of intelligence, determination, and wisdom. Well, that's not what my friends say about me, but never mind, it was on the internet, so it must be true. what we're looking at here is an instance of the Barnum effect, where you say nice things about people, like flying high and thinking big ideas quietly. And because you say nice things, they tend to believe them. It's a really important component of some of the garbage that we stumble across in our work. So if you have a favorite fad or a favorite thing that you like to use or don't like to use, or have tried and it didn't work or did work for you, by all means, put a message in the message box. And I can see the messages, but Helen, who is brilliant at this, can also read them out so everyone can hear interesting stuff that's going on. What's your favorite fad?
Yeah, let's see what people come up with. I have put that I am going to do that for myself after this session today. My initial thought was I want to be a barn owl. I like owls, but owls aren't actually, they're a sign of wisdom, aren't they? But they're not actually that intelligent. I remember Bird of Prey show and they told me all about it and I was disappointed to learn they're not as intelligent as I've been led to believe.
But they do like eating mice.
Yeah, well, yes, we did. We had a go at doing that. But yeah, I think Feng-shui I've always stayed away from because I can't keep everything where it should be anyway, let alone having to have it in a special place. So definitely not for me.
Right. While you're all of you fingers on keyboards, please, while you're writing out your favorites here, and do comment on anything at any time you like. Let's have a look at the next slide.
While I'm moving us to the next slide, I know quite a lot of people who swear by NLP, which I thought was it was an interesting quote in there. I know a lot of people still use it, don't they?
They do, and it's bunkum, in a word. Ooh. It's bunkum. But if you're using NLP and at the same time you're doing good quality counselling, the counselling might be what's doing the work. That's the engine of success. It isn't this rather peculiar and unproven theory.
Excellent. I've got a comment for you then from Kevin. I was hoping we would get one through. So I'm wonderfully balanced along with everyone else on this planet, born in late September / early October, allegedly. Okay, horoscopes.
Yeah, how nice that you're so wonderfully balanced. I might fall off my chair because I was born in March, which is the other end of the year. So clearly I'm unbalanced.
Me too, David. That explains a lot for both of us,
doesn't it? Doesn't it just? Let's look at the question of barriers to work. This is a very popular very and perfectly reasonable approach to helping people get into work, isn't it? Because they've got barriers, they're really serious, and you help them overcome them, and that becomes a key notion in our work. And I've put it early in this talk because what I'm going to say is both true and controversial. Let's see why in the next slide. Here are some people with substantial barriers to work. David Blunkett, the famously blind Minister for Education. Winston Churchill, the less famously but severely depressed Prime Minister. A guy called Chris Moon, who had his legs blown off when he was mine clearing for a mine clearing charity and went on to run an ultra marathon and is a general all-round great guy. Or more prosaically and commonly, my next door neighbour has 2 young children, one under school age, can't drive, lives in the countryside, pretty limited skill base, not much of a network. Those look like barriers to work. Do people agree? How do you work around barriers? Jeanette, I love that comment.
On here, we're still on NLP in the chat. I'm really sorry.
I can see that.
We're on NLP and horoscopes, but we will catch up. I agree with you around that. When you look at these, they do look like barriers, don't they? But they're all, we've just refused to see them as barriers.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you that my neighbour has never been out of work in the 6 years I've known her. and her oldest child is coming up for 6 now. So that's pretty good going.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I always remember, and obviously we're waiting for people to pop in the comments. I remember one of the things that my mum told me a lot as a single working mum when we were young was she used to tell us a lot, having 2 daughters, you can do anything you want to. If you put your mind to it, you will find a way. And I think having that voice in your head is my way of working around barriers, just that belief that if I keep trying, sooner or later I'll come up with an answer to the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and Deb said barriers or logistics, always a way to fix a logistical issue. Spot on. If you treat it not as a barrier, but as an issue to fix, you get a different attitude to it. And I think that really empowers the client. And the attitude, for Kevin's remarking. Yeah. So think about your way to work around barriers, because the way you talk to a client about their barriers could make them worse, or it could make them much easier. Okay, so barriers to work, a key concept, one that can go either way. Let's go on to the next one. Then I thought, I'll tell you what, I've got arthritis. I'm going to ask a chat bot, a computer bot that won a big prize lately and a big grant of money to get developed about my barrier to work. And what it says is they're going to harness the power of artificial intelligence to give me tailored advice, get me into well-paid employment. That'd be a change. And told me point blank on their website that they're a well-informed counsellor. Well, fine. So I said, my biggest priority is dealing with my arthritis. Do you know what? That computer bot didn't even recognize what I'd said. It just went straight on with telling me how to do networking. I mean, it's unbelievably incompetent. Unbelievable. And try it for yourself. I have a good friend who I sent it to, and he had a go as well. he was really surprised by how bad it is. Let's look at the next slide. Oh, now what are these? Jeanette said something, and Deb.
Okay, let's have a look at some of the comments. So before Jeanette's comments, we had Kevin who said, the problem is not the problem is your attitude to the problem. And he was quoting Captain Jack Sparrow. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Jeanette said, confidence is a big issue for the people I work with, but it's amazing how pointing out their skill set can help with confidence. Barriers versus expectations and managing these so they are not perceived as barriers. And
quite
Deb,
right. It's how you relate to the person, isn't it, that makes the difference.
Absolutely. And Deb says that artificial intelligence implanted into the automated system by someone, so limited by the intelligence of those planting responses and information, one size does not fit all.
Spot on. Trouble with artificial intelligence is that it's artificial and it's not very intelligent. But that's just my take on the world. Let's look at labour market information, because that's all over the place. And clearly knowing about the labour market is really important in employability. Well, it stands to reason, doesn't it? And I was thinking about this morning and reminded myself that back in the early 1980s, I made a successful prediction a year ahead of the unemployment rate in the northern borough of England. I was so proud of myself. God, I'll tell you, actually looking back on it, I'm sure it was more luck than judgment. I'm sure it was. But if my prediction had been wrong, I would have just forgotten it, wouldn't I? Next slide, please, Helen. So, a bit of fun. I'm not going to read these all out, just have a quick look at your screen, and here are some predictions that have been made. And I want you to think, when were they made? They're all made at the same time. And about what time in the future were they made? And is there anything obviously missing?
Wow, that's a good question. So virtual elimination of bacterial and viral disease. Wow, so that says to me it must have been a while ago.
Yeah.
Average lifespan will be pushed towards 100 years. Food enough for the whole world from harvesting the sea and synthetic protein.
Any guesses yet as to
Weather
when
will
these
be
were made?
controlled on a regional scale. We have our first estimate has come in at 1858-ish from Deb.
Oh,
Thank you for going with that, Deb. Thank you for the first guess. Let's see if we can get
any more guesses?
Yes, I know.
Dahlia. Dahlia.
1965, we've got a 1958. Rachel's asking, thank you for those, Melanie and Dahlia. And Rachel's asking if this is in line with Back to the Future predictions. So yeah, I don't recall them being in the movie. Astronauts will land on Mars.
Yeah.
Genetic code will be unravelled. Okay, so. Well, there's a clue at the bottom. You see, I've been too busy reading the chat and missed the clues. So Jeanette said 1928. I'm saying 1960s. Melanie's saying 1970. Sorry if I've missed any.
I'm going to just because we could spend all evening all day on this, I'm going to move us on by giving you the answer. Congratulations to Dahlia, who's got it absolutely spot on. 1965. And these were predictions for 1990.
Wow.
So here we are, 30 years after these predictions should have come true. And by and large, they're a long way off, aren't they?
So Jeanette's asked, is Madonna a prediction? I'm guessing 1965 is the year she was born then. Is that the year?
No, the clue is Procol Harum were popular at the time that these predictions were made. Madonna was popular about the time when they were supposed to come true.
Got you. Okay, that makes sense.
So deliberately bad clue. So it's very difficult. The trouble with predictions really is they're about the future, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're tough to make. They are, and they're more often wrong than right. And the thing that's missing from this list, of course, is the internet. God damn it! Let's look at the next slide. Now this really does get controversial. Labour market information is used to make us feel bad about things. You know, every time there's a spike in unemployment amongst school leavers, as you can see in the left-hand graph with the red line, every time there's that spike, people start banging on about a lost generation, as though somehow those school leavers are going to be permanently and irrevocably chucked out of the labour market. And that's pretty motivating, you know, isn't it? Politicians can get quite worked up about that, and so can we, with good reason. But on the right-hand side, I won't describe it in detail. On the right-hand side, what I've done is to take the school leaving dates of those people and map them all onto a single point so that you can see whether or not any one group ends up more unemployed than another. And they don't. They simply don't. Oh, Helen.
Yes, wonderful news, David. We found one of the lost school leavers from
right
here with us. It's Helen. Welcome, Helen, and we're glad we found you.
Hey, well done. That's a success. I'm going to write up a case history about that, proving how good this is. Great. So actually, the lost look, people do suffer from unemployment, and if you miss out on your early years, it's likely but not proven that it's pretty bad for your prospects. But the lost generation concept is a mistake, and it's not really helpful. Let's move on. Yes, and then comes the real heavy-duty predictions stuff, and this is all good recent stuff. I looked up predictions for the craft of a joiner. and 53% of the tasks could be executed by computer programs or robots. Well, I'll tell you what, I went down the road and asked a guy who was building a roof on a house if a computer program could do that. And he told me, well, he used some very choice language about interrupting his working morning. And what does it actually mean, 53% of the tasks? And does that mean I use a self-driving car to get to work? Does it mean I've got an automatic tea maker? Has someone invented a better nail gun? This is meaningless garbage. And sometimes it gets really elaborate, doesn't it? With Nesta telling us that 6 million jobs will change. Well, yes, and is that new? Is that news? Or are they just trying to sell us some snake oil? Could Nesta have predicted the closure of the coal mines and the shipyards and the steel industry? I don't think so, because they didn't. So what is labour market information? Well, I'll tell you, I think for us, labour market information is whether or not Terry's Cafe is going to reopen, because it's just been redecorated and rebuilt during the lockdown. And if for business reasons it doesn't reopen, there's going to be some people looking for work. And if it does reopen, there'll be a few vacancies. That's labour market information, isn't it? So fingers on keyboards, please. How do you get your labour market information? Do you go walking around the streets, knocking on doors? Do you read the newspaper? Do you sign up to the Nesta research? Or what do you do? Job boards? Rachel uses job boards.
Yeah, and Deb's put, could any of us have predicted the huge growth in organisations that like to peddle doom, gloom, labour market information and regurgitate old style programmes as the latest new thing?
Oh, if you go on talking like that, I'm going to have to send you a big mwah. Hello, because it goes on all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, so Rachel said job boards. Jeanette said we talk about labour market information. It's moved for me because lots of people are commenting now. But it's how we interpret it and what we use it for that makes it intelligence. I agree there, yes.
It's how you use it.
Yeah, Deb's saying news communication with those actually in work, employing, job agencies, networking, and having conversations on webinars like this one.
Yeah, it is. It's being out there. It's walking the patch, metaphorically or literally, isn't it? That's what works. So there's a picture of Terry's breakfast for you.
Interestingly, as you know, David, and everyone, I think most of the people on the call are regulars today, you'll know I recently moved and my partner is a builder, and he put one comment in a Facebook local group, a local area group, about having moved to the area and his experience, and a day later he had to switch it off because he had so much work coming in that he had to close it down and say, I can't cope with any work at the moment. It's too much. And it's literally from that network of people speaking to each other. I mean, I've visited a job, they've told him about 2 other people who want something doing, and he can't for it. So that personal network, that personal knowledge is so important, isn't it?
Certainly works, doesn't it? Works better than anything, the personal network. Let's move on. So we've debunked labour market information sufficiently to tell us that we need it. Oh yes, personality profiles. Oh God, have you got a personal profile that you prefer? There is a perfect job for you. All you've got to do is answer these 30 questions and we'll tell you what it is. Next slide, please. Here's the most famous of them for our business, the famous Holland codes. Well, I reckon that in the world, there's over 10 million people for each possible combination of the Holland codes. Just a quick, back of the envelope type calculation. And I'm not going to read out all the text there, but those remarks below are all taken from critiques of the Holland Code system. And I think one of the biggest for me is that it completely ignores your ethnic origin, your gender, where you are, your social capital, or anything else. And yet it is used worldwide.
There's lots of variations of this as well, isn't there, David? There's lots of different versions of it.
You do see lots of different versions. Let's look at the next slide and here are two versions. Helen, you're a mind reader. How did you? I took two tests. The first one told me I'm social and artistic. Oh, I was so flattered. Oh, sorry, it's the Barnum effect. I like being social and artistic, even though I'm actually quite antisocial. So I took another test and it told me I'm realistic and investigative, whatever that means. But on that same test, for some reason, the score for enterprising was just as high as the score for realistic. So I don't know what they think they're working on here, but bizarre. And that was on the same day for the same person. And using those profiles, the famous, elaborate, and immensely data-packed American system ONET decided I should be a music therapist if I wasn't going to be a part naturalist. And I thought, sorry, what planet are they on? Oh, of course, they were the ones who were going to land on Mars, aren't they? Let's look at the next slide.
While I move that across for you, Kate has just shared with us that her top career produced from such a system was a hypnotherapist.
Hypnotherapist, my goodness me. I haven't seen that one. I've seen some bizarre ones. I got one coming up later to share with you, Kate. Then there's Myers-Briggs. Now, Myers-Briggs has been around for ages and it's very expensive. How many of these people actually want you to pay the money for this kind of charlatanism? Myers-Briggs has been around for so long that people think it's actually got something to it. But actually, there's 487 million people in the world for every one of the possible 16 combinations. It's the Barnum effect again. It tells you you're a certain kind of person using nice words, and some people believe it. But
I have been trained in this, David. I'm going to be honest with you. I was trained in this in a previous job role, and I remember not coming out as the thing I expected to, and really arguing with the person who was taking me through it, because I was like, that's really not me.
Yeah.
And it was just how I'd answered the questions, I think, on that day.
Yeah, absolutely right. It used to be used in the American military, but they've dropped it because in the end it didn't work for them, as Deb wanted to do.
So we've had some chat around different job roles in the chat, and I think it'd be good to share it. Deb said she once carried out a work experience, health and safety visit on an artificial limb painter, where we would where would that have popped up on a prediction site? There you go. Yeah, that is an interesting one, isn't it?
Isn't it just? And I'll tell you what. Can I give prizes? No, I can't because I'm here and you're all over there. But I'll certainly give a big round of applause to anyone who can tell me what a banksman is.
A banksman.
A banksman. BANKSMAN.
Okay, so while people are talking,
job.
And something's just come in actually.
Dahlia, construction site. You're close, but not. There's close, but no cigar. Crane director, Dahlia. Now you're getting there. Yeah. Well, we've got experts on this call. Helen, I better be careful.
You will. Now, interestingly, Deb said that she once didn't get a job because of one of these assessments, and that's the worrying thing about them, isn't it? People do not get jobs because of them. They're
very dangerous. I think they are positively harmful because they close down opportunities. And there may be some clients, certain characters, certain types of client might be really fired up by doing one of these. but there's no way of knowing which. They're very difficult. Let's move on. Yes, directs plant machinery on site, Jeanette. You're quite right. Now, if you're a proper psychologist, you'll probably subscribe to the idea that there are 5 called the big 5 personality traits. And they're in the diagram on your screen. Some psychologists say it should be 6, and that should be a bit of a warning to anyone that they don't really know what's going on here. Then if you take the step to say that those personalities suit certain kinds of jobs, you get into very deep water very quickly. And you can see the quote on the screen there, that if I score high in openness, I could be an artist or a philosopher. Good grief. I mean, how helpful is that? I must change my career. I really must. I've obviously been in the wrong career all my life. If you're a low scorer on, what was it, openness, they put you into all these bureaucratic jobs. But actually, who says? Who says? Let's look at the next slide. Because here's a picture of a real workplace. It's all right, it's a while back and there aren't many that look like that now, but you get the general picture. All of those people are either supervising or doing identical work. There's no question that they have different personality traits. You'd only have to meet 2 or 3 to find out for yourself. So I think what we must always remember is to think about the opportunities for work. Good in some places. Where do you live? What's around you? Plasticity, the fact that every one of us adjusts ourselves and our character to the work we like and to the work we can get. Think about getting more mature in our work and in our personalities. I'm certainly not the person I was when I was 20, and I think the world's a better place for that, but some might disagree. What are the tasks you have to do? What's the environment and what's the team like? I mean, look at that picture there. Is that a team? Not in the modern understanding of the word. Yeah. Who's that, Deb? Where did you get a picture of our office from? I'm not telling you, Deb. I'm not telling anyone. So there are things we can think about: opportunity, plasticity, task, team, environment, maturity, things like that. That's not meant to be the list, it's a list, which help us. And these classifications from the psychologists are pretty dodgy, I reckon. Let's go on. Oh, but there's an answer, isn't there? Yes, all we have to do is look at the job description. That'll tell us. Everyone knows job descriptions are written by hyper-intelligent, all-knowing robots in the health and in the personnel department. What do you call it now?
HR.
Human remains, that's right. And here is a real job description for an electrical test engineer and a picture of an electrician up a ladder. Now, just have a quick scan down that list. I'm looking at the time, I mustn't run out. And quickly, see if you can identify anything in the job description that tells you what a person has to do, where they do it, how quickly, who they work with, and how they carry it out. Testing your speed reading, of course. Okay,
Kate says it doesn't.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And this is a job description which I was given when I was helping an electrical test engineer go back to work after an injury. And somehow somebody somewhere thought that giving me that would really provide some answers to what he had to do. Needless to say, a site visit was called for. And that was all right because he lived by the seaside. If you want to go on adding your thoughts to that, please do. It's great. I can see your comments. I don't know if you can. Helen can see them and is keeping a closer watch than I can. And it's great to see them. Let's go on. What happens if we put together skill profiling and job match? Here we go. I'm an old geezer. I know exactly what my skills are. I know what I've done in my life. So I went online. I thought, I'll give it my skills. And it's not like a school leaver who finds it difficult to answer skill questions. And here's the list of jobs that came up with, that these two came up with. First of all, the two are both very different from each other. They're inconsistent. And secondly, I don't want to do any of those things. And thirdly, and here's the thing, neither of these career guidance websites were able to identify the work I have been doing all my life. So there we go. I'm going to be a breakfast attendant. As long as I don't have to look like that.
And you can only be a temporary painter, not a permanent painter.
Of course, only temporary. A painter, temporary. I paint temporarily. Crazy. So skill profiling and job match. What's that from Deb, Helen?
Yeah, Deb said something that it really resonates, I would suspect, with many of us, certainly me, that she's been in a number of roles and has never had a job description that ever bore any relation to the stuff that she actually ends up doing. And that too many job descriptions are produced by those that never actually did the job they're advertising for or have any real on-the-ground knowledge of what needs to be done.
They just don't work, do they? I don't know. People get paid for writing that stuff. I suppose it keeps the unemployment numbers down. That's always a good point, isn't it?
There's a crystal ball that she's going to use for her skills profiling and job match programs instead of these sites. So I think that's plan, don't you?
What a good idea, Jeanette. I like that. Crystal balls. Let's all go out and buy one.
Or we could all use some of those. They have lots of prediction things. Dogs choosing which bowl of food to eat to predict who's going to win the Euros games at the moment.
That's the way forward.
Although, we say it doesn't work. I watched it yesterday and the dog chose the lasagna over, I think it was paella or something. And Italy did win. They did win tonight. So maybe.
Who could ask for more proof than that? Let's look at the next slide. Right, here's one for you. Suppose a client comes to you and they say, I would like to be a rights of way negotiator. What would your first response be? What would you say to them? Tapping away? I chose this career because I was told to be one way back shortly after I left university. And Brenton did one of these tests before computers were in use. I had to stick pins in a piece of paper.
So Kate has said, do you know what they do? Alia said, that's interesting. What do they do? Rachel, tell me more about what that role involves and what interests you about it. Oh, these are good, aren't they?
Aren't they great?
Tell me about what you believe the job entails so I can focus on the role and not the job title and then start the ball rolling.
So, I mean, brilliant responses from people there. Thank you. Because what you immediately do is you ask the client about their perceptions and you learn from them and you engage with them as a person and with the job they're thinking about as a real thing in their mind. So let's look at the next slide. And here's what the UK Career Chat said to me. And, the mind boggles that a client should go online, ask for a very simple job, and get a list back like this. I mean, how does that help? This is positively damaging their chances of understanding how to get a job as a rights of way negotiator, or indeed what's involved.
Kevin thinks that the job role rights of way negotiator sounds like they want to be a traffic light.
There's something in that, Kevin. Yeah, it is the person who does exactly what their job's title says. They negotiate the right to put a road or a railway or a telephone wires across land. And their proper title is a way leaves officer. But since none of the career bots know that title, I used a more common one. Let's go on. How are we doing?
Next slide.
Yeah, next one, please, Han. Oh, yes, ONET, the famous and enormous and actually quite useful sometimes database, free online, use it if you want, but it does have a few glitches in it. Would you want to be treated by an anaesthetist who has the mathematical skills of the average carpet fitter? Not sure that I would, actually. But you have to dig pretty deep into the data before you start finding that kind of stuff. So that's another aspect of all of this, is that when you get instant answers, even if they look a bit dippy, it's quite hard to work out where in the system the error has been found. No, Kevin has said.
Kevin says no, but I would like my carpet fitter to have the mathematical skills of an anaesthetist. It's similar myself. I was like, maybe they're just all really bright because of the spatial thing.
Great stuff, Kevin. Love it. Love it. Next slide, please. Now, here's one that's very popular with medical people and rehabilitation consultants particularly. It's the idea that if you catch people very early on, they won't get stuck in unemployment. And that makes a kind of intuitive sense. And there's lots of literature around the idea that long-term unemployment scars you for life. It isn't that simple. It's probably true, but it isn't that simple. First of all, nearly everybody who goes on the sick gets off the sick really quickly. So you either need to know what illness they've got or to wait a very long time before you decide whether they need extra help over and above what the NHS is going to do for them. And even with unemployed people, quite a large proportion of very long-term unemployed people leave the register. What's interesting about that is that the proportion who leave the unemployment register goes up and down with the economy more than it goes up and down with the duration of their unemployment. So several things are at work here. First of all, the very long-term unemployed might have something about them that we haven't spotted, which in the statistical jargon is unobserved heterogeneity. So there are plenty of people who are long-term unemployed who've got barriers to work, and there are plenty of other people with the same barriers who are in work. The question is, what's the difference? That's unobserved heterogeneity. But it could also be chance or a mixture of both. So early intervention, there's something in it, but it's not simple. We need to be very careful how we set about this. Let's go on. Next one's Helen. Thank you, Helen. So I want to ask ourselves, none of these things are easy answers. They promised, each of them promise in one way, accuracy, consistency, accessibility, predictability, and efficiency. They use personality profiles, they use job matching, they use labour market information, machine learning, well, yet to find a machine that does actually, and intelligence that's only artificial. All this is all about automatic advice. And they all make these promises, and the promise makes us think about, well, we won't need to make as much effort, we won't need as many people, it'll be easy for clients, it'll be efficient for everybody, and it only costs £1 million a minute to run whatever system you're about to buy. What could possibly go wrong? Next slide. What goes wrong is that human, and the key word is human, professional input has been reduced or replaced. Because none of these systems can even begin to do what is done automatically, can be trained, can be improved, but is an automatic, innate, inbuilt part of being a person. Next slide, please, Helen. You take out the human professional input and the system, whatever it is, becomes blind to the local labour market and local networks. Might be very good at national statistics, God help us. What on earth use is that? I want to know if Terry's Cafe is going to reopen. They have a distinct, noticeable lack of interpersonal skills. Some of them are positively offensive. They are not adapted to the personal circumstances of each client, to the social and cultural situation. They don't even know about it. And even if you put it all in a database, none of them have the intelligence to be able to use that information. And those deficiencies actually limit the capacities of our systems and ourselves and our clients to make choices and to move on to helpful action that they choose. I think that's what's going on with these snake oil merchants. Some of it sounds kind of funny until you think about what it means for the people on the receiving end. I've just about finished, so does anyone have anything to say or to ask?
Okay, so we'll just see if anything pops up in there on the chat for you, David, and everyone a second to think about what they'd like to share. Not yet. We have a comment in here around, Deb says, automated systems make money automatically and feed into wealth, but not wealth of opportunity and improvement of life for those who are subject to these systems. Kate says, oh, sorry, David.
I'm from Kate there, yeah.
Yeah, Kate says, this is totally opposite to what I will be told at work and how I should work with my learners. I love it. Oh, I hope we're not going to get in trouble, David.
I hope we are. This is trouble we should find this trouble and work on.
I know, you like to, yes, you do, don't you? You do, and you know, it's always important that we challenge these. Kev says, I have to shoot you now, David, but thank you for a very frank and humorous session. Oh, he has to shoot, not shoot you. I thought, oh, dear. Yeah. Yes, and thank you. No, you're very welcome, and thank you for coming along to join us today.
Yeah, lovely to see you, Kevin.
Again, yeah, definitely. Deb has a question. What do the learners prefer? Why are they not asking this question as providers?
Yes, very interesting one. It's a couple of references I could dig out. I can't remember where they are now, if it's somewhere. We show that clients and learners value completely different parts of the process to those valued by advisors. The one thing people seem to agree on is that the human input is a really important part.
Okay.
Any more comments?
Just making sure I haven't missed any.
No, I don't think we.
Tell me what you believe the job in. Oh no, sorry, that's from an earlier one. That's me. I think, you know, the sort of, we didn't really comment on it, but the comment I read from Deb around the automated systems make money automatically, don't they? And it's sort of seen as an easy way. Ali says, similar to a previous session here where we discussed how targets in employment support services aren't the right approach, individual service users need individual support that's holistic, looks at mental health and lifestyle.
Yeah.
Really
It's
strong.
it's the individual support and the one size does not fit all that makes a difference.
Massively.
Yeah, that's well,
so Jeanette says, before you close up, Jeanette says, I may have to deliver the same sort of message to people, but we'll need to tailor it to the individual and work within their sphere of understanding. And Karen says, so yeah, and I think Jeanette, I think that David will probably be coming to this. You've got all of your references for where you've got your research on the end of the presentation that we can share, haven't you, David?
Yes, I have.
That should help people where they're challenging, or if they want to use those statistics to help challenge. Karen says, I'm entirely of the opinion that the advisor cannot be replaced because the core of counselling is the partnership between the client and the advisor. It cannot be replaced by a robot or a mathematical prediction. At the same time, the advisor may benefit from a proper data analysis.
So that's a nice point, that some of the data, some of the labour market information stuff and things like that can be helpful to provoke thinking and professionalism for the advisor. And I think the best automatic career systems do say on them, look, don't use it without an advisor to help. Yeah.
And we had a comment earlier around, I think it was Kate who had popped it in, around how once for a job sheet had a personality test. And we've talked about this before, isn't it? The difference in language and making sure you've got that human person there saying, this is an assessment, not a test. You can't fail a personality test. Everybody has one. It's not an either or. A lovely comment here from Deb, in the word of Barbara Streisand, the Barbara Streisand song, people need people. Very true.
There's no doing without them, even for old curmudgeons like me. Great stuff. Great.
Excellent.
Stuff. Helen, shall we have a quick look at the list of references? There we go. I'm not going to read them out, but they're not comprehensive. They're just the ones I stumbled across and picked up while I was putting this together. And having them up here means they'll also be on the YouTube, so that's nice. You can, if like me, you're a bit of an obsessive, you can have a lot of fun and waste many hours looking up references like this. I recommend Google Scholar. I don't usually recommend Google to anybody, but Google Scholar is quite good. And even just ordinary web searches, I'm afraid, usually just come up with more guff. But have some fun. Look it out. And if people want to talk, let's look at the last slide there, Helen. I like this one. If people want to talk, I am absolutely always up for conversations and for emails. They make my day, because working on my own down in the wild west of England, it really cheers me up to have conversations with folks like you. And if you've got ideas or questions or want to argue about it, I'm certainly up for that. Cups of tea all round. In fact, I'll put the kettle on now.
Ali would like to know if any one of these is recommended as a first one, and she's referring to the previous slide where we were looking at the research.
Do you want to go back to it? Can you go back?
Yes, of course.
Oh, yeah. There it is. It's so long since I've read it. Oh, yeah. No, you'll be able to dig that out. It's freely available. All of this is pretty much free. You might have to dig around a bit to find it, but you're not going to get charged.
Is there anyone you would say people should read first?
Yeah. Anyway, that's my rather personal take on garbage in and garbage out. I do hope. Thank you, Helen, very much for looking after us and making it a fun session. Really, Helen's brilliant. Big round of applause for Helen.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind. You're too kind to me, David. So we have here, we've got some comments I have to share with you, David, before we do. Deb says she sits in many webinars, and this is the one where the most sense is talked. Cracking, David. And I think that's very true. So I wanted to share that with you. We have also as well from Dahlia. Oh, I've lost Dahlia's now. I will find it in a second. Brilliant session from Rachel. Thank you, David. Karen says, thank you very much, David. Addressing such a serious subject with good humour is your magic power. At the next session you do for us now, I'm going to have you in a superhero cape on the welcome slides with the picture of you. We will definitely do that. Great. Thanks, David. A great session again.
Yeah.
Got some more messages. Jeanette says, thank you, David. I so enjoy your sessions. It is refreshing and gets the old grey cells going. Oh, and thank you to me as well. You're very welcome, Jeanette. It's lovely. It wouldn't be a good session if it wasn't for you all being here and joining in.
Yeah.
And this is my favourite comment, I think, so far. Boris needs you working in the DWP. I think just the government as a whole, really. I think we can all agree that Boris needs David working.
Oh,
so.
yeah, sweet. It would be disastrous. Imagine. Good heavens. Terrible. Thank you all so very much for coming and giving up your lunch hour. It's always fun. I have such fun making these and great fun presenting, but your lovely participation and comments make it all really worthwhile. Thank you again to Helen and the IEP as well for being a super professional organisation. Enjoy your afternoon.
Oh, thank you, David. That's wonderful. And as I always do before we go, I'll say a massive thank you. I do look forward to our sessions together, David, but I wouldn't be a Live Learn Lunch if I didn't talk about what was coming on the next couple of weeks. So next week we have RNIB joining us again with some seeing opportunities, and we're going to be looking at how to support people with sight impairment when they're going back to the workplace. So if they're returning after furlough or after a time away, what can we do in order to support them? And then the following week on the 21st, we've got Meraki Consulting joining us, and they're going to be taking us through how to handle participant feedbacks and complaints effectively. So two really useful sessions coming up over the next couple of weeks. And I believe we do have you joining us again in the future, David, but it's in August and I can't think of the date off the top of my head, but we will let everyone know, won't we? And get you back again. So thank you very much.
Special hello to Karen, whom I haven't seen for years and years, and I hope you're wonderfully well.
Excellent, brilliant. Already booked. Deb's already booked for August. You see, David, this I told you were very popular. So there you go. We've already got bookings for you for your August session.
I can't even remember what it's about. Must consult diary.
I think it's quality. I think it's about instilling quality.
Good.
So it will be a good one. It will be a good one. So
very serious. Very serious.
I'm sure it won't be very serious. I'm sure I'll have lots of fun with it. So great to have you all here today. Thank you very much for spending your time with us, your lunch time with us, and I look forward to seeing you all next Wednesday. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.